We just didn't think it was worth the drive, Renee. That's what my mother said. Flat, calm, like she was talking about skipping a sale at the grocery store. I was standing in my kitchen. The birthday cake was still on the table. 7 candles, all of them burned down to nothing. My son Eli had asked me 4 times that afternoon why nobody came. 4 times. And I had to find 4 different ways to say, I don't know, baby, without breaking down in front of him. I sent my mother $1 the next morning, just $1, through her bank app. No note, no explanation. I didn't know that single dollar would eventually bring a police officer to her front door. My name is Renee Calloway. I'm 34 years old, and this is the story of the day I stopped being the woman my family could walk over without consequence. I'm not someone who looks impressive on paper. I work as a freelance medical transcriptionist. I sit at a desk in a small apartment, listen to doctors dictate patient notes, and type them up accurately and fast. It's quiet work, invisible work. I built it from scratch after my divorce 4 years ago, when I had no savings, a toddler, and a family who said very little to help and even less to encourage. Eli is 7 now. He's the reason I get up every morning. He likes dinosaurs and strawberry milk, and he sings in the car even when he doesn't know the words. He is my entire world. I drive a 2012 Honda with a cracked dashboard and a heater that only works on the highest setting. I pack Eli's lunch every single day because school lunch is $4, and $4 matters to us. I'm not saying this so you'll feel sorry for me. I'm saying it so you understand exactly who I am and exactly what my family knew about my life. And they still chose what they chose. I grew up as the overlooked one. My younger sister Dana was the one they always praised. She was the one who got the birthday parties with the full guest list. She was the one my mother called first with good news. She was the one who could do no wrong, even when she clearly did. I spent most of my childhood quietly watching that dynamic and telling myself it didn't matter. I told myself that for a very long time. I wasn't rich or glamorous. I wasn't the one they put in the center of family photos, but I showed up. Every graduation, every hospital visit, every holiday dinner, even the ones where I wasn't really wanted. I brought a dish and I smiled, and I stayed until the end. I showed up because I believed that's what family meant. But I had something they didn't expect. I paid attention to everything. If your family always expected you to show up but never returned the favor, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment and tell me your story. You are not invisible here. And click hype so others like us can find this community. Now let me tell you what actually happened. Eli's birthday was on a Saturday in March. I had been planning it for 3 weeks. Not a big party, we don't have money for big, but I wanted it to feel real. I hung paper streamers in blue and green, his favorite colors. I baked a chocolate cake from scratch with buttercream frosting and little dinosaur figures pressed into the top. I had shared a photo of the cake design in the family group chat 2 weeks earlier because I was proud of it, and because I thought, naively, that sharing things like that was what families did. I invited 11 people. My mother, my sister Dana, 2 aunts, an uncle, 4 cousins, and 2 of my mother's close friends who had known Eli since he was born. 11 people. I was not asking for much. The cancellations started at noon. The party was at 2. My aunt texted first. Something came up, so sorry. Then a cousin. We're exhausted. Next time for sure. Then another, then another. By 1:30, every single person had canceled. 11 people. Not one showed up. Eli stood at the front window for 20 minutes watching the driveway. He didn't say much. He just watched. And that silence from a 7-year-old hurt more than anything anyone has ever said to me directly. That evening, I was washing dishes when my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. My cousin had tagged my mother in a post. I clicked it without thinking. There they were. My mother, Dana, my aunts, my uncle, the cousins, all of them, laughing in Dana's backyard, string lights overhead, food on the table, someone had brought balloons. It was the same afternoon. My hands went still under the running water. I turned off the tap. I stood there in the quiet kitchen, and I looked at those photos until my eyes stopped blurring. Then I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring, which meant she wasn't even ashamed enough to let it go to voicemail. Dana needed us today.
Her voice was patient, like she was explaining something to someone slow. "Eli's young, he won't even remember."
I didn't say anything for a moment. I was looking at my phone, at Dana's story. And that's when I saw it, right there in the background of one of her videos, sitting on a decorative table near the food. A cake, chocolate, buttercream, dinosaur figures pressed into the top. The exact design I had shared in the family group chat 2 weeks ago. She had copied it, not for Eli, for her own party on his birthday. I told my mother I had to go. I hung up, I walked to Eli's room and stood in the doorway and listened to him breathe in the dark. Then I went back to the kitchen, sat down in front of that untouched birthday cake, and made a decision. That was the night I stopped being understanding. I noticed it the next morning when I picked up my phone. I had been removed from the family group chat. No message, no explanation, just gone. I texted my aunt directly and asked what happened. Her response came 20 minutes later. "Dana said you've been negative lately. We just need good energy right now." That was it. No conversation, no chance to respond. I had been erased from the family thread like a contact you block and forget. I put my phone face down on the counter and got Eli ready for school. I did not cry. I was past crying. Something colder had moved in where the hurt used to live. 2 weeks later, I went to my Uncle Raymond's retirement lunch. It was at a restaurant downtown, round tables with white tablecloths and that particular smell of carpet cleaner and old wood paneling that old banquet rooms always have. I went because Raymond had always been kind to me, and I wasn't going to punish him for what the others had done. I sat at the far end of the table, 8 relatives around me. Dana was there, laughing loudly, holding court. My mother was beside her, glowing the way she always did when Dana was performing. At some point, the conversation turned to family dynamics. Someone mentioned how important it was to keep your circle positive, and my mother looked directly at me and said loud enough for the whole table to hear, "Renee, you should take notes from Dana. She knows how to keep people around her. You've always been a little difficult." The table went quiet. A couple of people nodded slowly like she had said something wise. I smiled. My hands were shaking in my lap, but my face was completely still. I said nothing. And I learned something important in that silence. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes silence is a recording device. The third thing happened a few days later. My father had passed 2 years before. He had told me privately, more than once, that he wanted me to have his vintage watch. It was nothing extravagant, just a simple silver watch he had worn every day for 30 years. But he had told me it was mine, more than once, in those exact words. I found out through my cousin that my mother had given the watch to Dana. I called my mother and asked her about it directly. She didn't deny it. She just said, "Dana always admired that watch, and he never put it in writing, Renee. Life isn't fair. Let it go." I let the silence hang on the line for a long moment. Then I said, "Okay, Mom," and I hung up. That night, I opened my laptop. I created a new folder. I named it Record, and I started filling it. Here's what they didn't know. 3 years ago, I was the one who helped my mother set up her online banking account. She's not great with technology, and I walked her through the whole process step by step. When we set up the account notifications, we used an old shared email address to catch the confirmation codes. She never changed it after, and that email still forwarded to an account I had access to. I want to be clear about something. I didn't go looking for anything at first, but about a year before Eli's birthday, I had started receiving forwarded bank notifications by accident, and when I glanced at them, I noticed something that didn't make sense. There were transfers coming out of my late father's estate account, regular ones, not large amounts each time, but consistent, and they were going somewhere they were never supposed to go. My father's estate was supposed to be divided 3 ways between my mother, Dana, and me. That was the original arrangement. But the transfers I was seeing told a different story. Money was moving, and it wasn't moving toward me. I had screenshots. I had forwarded email confirmations. I had dates and dollar amounts going back months. I organized everything inside that Record folder, sorted by date, clearly labeled.
They thought I was too emotional to be dangerous. That was their biggest mistake. I contacted an estate attorney, not to file anything yet, just to understand what I was looking at. She listened carefully and then told me very calmly that what I was describing sounded like it warranted a much closer look.
The dollar I sent my mother the morning after Eli's birthday was not random. I needed a confirmed digital transaction between us, with a timestamp, something that would establish clearly when I became aware of the financial activity and began documenting it. $1, sent at 7:14 in the morning, logged automatically by both banks. I wanted her to know I was watching, even if she didn't understand it yet. About a month after Eli's birthday, I got a phone call from a man named Gerald Potts. He was an estate attorney, older, semi-retired. He had handled my father's original will. He told me he had been wanting to reach out for some time, but hadn't felt he was in a position to do so until now. He said there were things about the estate closure that had concerned him, things he wasn't able to voice at the time. We met at his office. It smelled like old paper and warm coffee and the kind of quiet that only exists in rooms where serious things are decided. He sat across from me and laid out what he had found. My father's estate had never been properly closed. Documents had been filed with the court that misrepresented how the assets had been distributed. Gerald used careful language, the language of a man who had been doing this for decades, but the meaning was clear. "Renee," he said, "what they did isn't just unkind. It may be fraud." I sat with that word for a moment. Fraud. Not carelessness, not a misunderstanding. Fraud. Gerald agreed to take my case. He began preparing a formal dispute filing quietly, with no announcements. We agreed I would say nothing to my family, nothing at all. Meanwhile, Dana posted on social media about the importance of pruning toxic people from your life. She got nearly 60 supportive comments. Relatives wrote things like, "Yes, Queen," and "Protecting your peace is everything." I read every comment. I said nothing. Then my mother called. It was a Tuesday evening. I was making dinner for Eli, and I almost didn't pick up, but I did. She didn't apologize for anything. She told me she needed me to sign a document, a legal form releasing my claim to a small piece of property my father had owned. She explained it as a formality, her voice warm and reassuring in a way that made my skin go cold because I knew exactly what the warmth was covering. "Just sign it and send it back," she said. "It's straightforward." I told her to send it over and that I'd take a look. She actually thought I'd sign it. I could hear the smile in her voice. I could hear her already moving on in her mind to the next thing. She had no idea that I had already handed every document I owned to Gerald Potts. She had no idea what was coming. The meeting was on a Thursday morning. Gerald's office was on the 4th floor of a building downtown. The waiting area had gray carpet and recessed lighting, and a front desk assistant who spoke in a low, professional voice. I arrived 20 minutes early. I sat in the chair at the far side of the conference table, the one facing the door, and I waited. I heard them before I saw them, my mother's voice in the hallway, telling Dana something about getting lunch afterward. The door opened. They walked in together. Dana was checking her phone. My mother was already reaching into her purse for a pen. She saw me and stopped. "Good," she said, composing herself quickly. "You're here. Let's just get this done." She sat down. Dana sat beside her. Gerald came in and took his seat at the head of the table. He set down a folder and folded his hands, and looked at both of them with an expression that gave nothing away. Then he opened the folder and slid 2 documents across the table. Not the release form they had come to sign, something else entirely. Dana picked hers up. Her eyes moved across the first line. Then she looked up. "What is this?" Gerald explained it in the same calm voice he had used with me. A formal estate dispute filing had been submitted to the state probate court. Given the evidence of financial misrepresentation in the distribution of the estate, a mandatory review had been initiated. The court would be examining all transactions related to the estate over the past 2 years. My mother's face had gone very still. She turned and looked at me. I looked back at her.
The dollar I sent you the morning after Eli's birthday, I needed a confirmed transaction timestamp on record. It helped establish exactly when I became aware of the account activity and began documenting it. My mother stood up from her chair. You had us investigated? Your own family? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You removed me from a family group chat without a single conversation. You gave away Dad's watch because Dana admired it. You skipped my son's 7th birthday to go to a barbecue and then told me he wouldn't remember. And for over a year, money from Dad's estate has been moved in ways that never included me. I paused. So, yes, Mom, I paid attention. Dana was crying. I don't know exactly when she started. Her face was in her hands and her shoulders were shaking, and she wasn't saying anything. My mother had gone pale, not the flushed, defensive pale of someone who is embarrassed, the gray, slow pale of someone who has just realized the ground beneath them is not as solid as they thought. Gerald cleared his throat and continued. He told them that in addition to the probate court filing, a formal complaint had also been submitted to local authorities regarding potential financial fraud, which is why earlier that week, a police officer had appeared at her mother's home to serve notice that her financial records related to the estate were now part of an active inquiry. My mother had told the extended family it was a mistake, a mix-up, something that would be cleared up quickly. She had been saying that for 6 days. It was not a mix-up. I closed the folder in front of me and pushed my chair back and stood. I'm not doing this out of hate. I'm doing it because Eli deserves a mother who doesn't let people walk over her, and because Dad deserved better than what you did with what he left behind. I picked up my bag and walked out. The estate dispute moved through the proper legal channels over the following months. Gerald was methodical and thorough, and the documentation I had gathered made his work easier than it might have been otherwise. The court confirmed that I was legally entitled to my share of the estate. The process to correct the distribution began. I didn't throw a party. I didn't post anything. I took Eli out for pancakes on a Saturday morning, just the two of us, and while he colored his paper placemat with the crayons the hostess brought, I told him that Mommy had handled something important. He looked up and said, "Is it good important or bad important?" I smiled at him. "Good important, baby." Some relatives reached out over the following weeks. Quiet messages, short apologies, carefully worded things from people who had watched what happened and were now doing their own quiet math. I responded to some of them and left others on read. Dana went silent on social media completely. My mother has not called. I used to think being the overlooked one meant I had less power. I spent years believing that being in the background made me smaller somehow, less significant, less important in the story my family was telling about itself. I had it completely backwards. They never watched me closely enough to know what I was building. They never paid attention carefully enough to notice what I was learning and saving and quietly preparing. They saw a woman who was grateful for whatever scraps of inclusion she was offered, and they assumed that gratitude was weakness. They skipped my son's birthday, and in doing so, they handed me every reason I needed to finally stop shrinking. If someone in your family has ever used love as cover to take something that wasn't theirs, you already know exactly how I felt sitting in that kitchen in front of a birthday cake no one came to eat. Subscribe and tell me your story in the comments. What did they take from you? Did you ever get it back? I want to know. Click hype to help this story reach every person out there who has been quietly robbed by someone they trusted. Standing up for yourself is hard. It is especially hard when the people you're standing up to are the ones who were supposed to love you first. If you've been there, subscribe and become part of this community. Let me know this story helped you by clicking hype, and tell me where you're watching from. I always read every comment, and I love seeing how far these stories travel.